You're so consumed and engulfed by this intoxicating voice that's just so self-destructive. My control and my escapism and my comfort was in the numbers going down. You know, weight was never my initial focus. It was just because I had quite severe underlying psychological factors which pushed me towards wanting this sense of control, this coping mechanism. Yeah, it was scary. It was really scary. And that's just a part of the process. Eating disorders are not just something to be glamorized and something to be stigmatized as a sense of vanity. I lost my period for, I think it was 2 years. Eating disorders and sex, how do they relate? I don't know how specifically that. Okay, moving on. Hi everybody, welcome back to another sit down video. I don't remember the last time I've done one of these because I think this YouTube channel, one, has become slightly neglected, and two, more so a casual video documentary slash vlog style, because I think my podcast has primarily been dedicated towards the more conversational elements of my content. So quick shout out to my podcast, the Keep Smiling Podcast. That is probably where I'm most consistent in terms of my content within my social media realm, within the discussions of mental health, well-being, lifestyle, eating disorder awareness, etc. But it's nice to finally come back and have a little sit down chat on YouTube. A few short days ago I put on my Instagram story asking for questions regarding, you know, eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, misconceptions, what people want to hear about. Yeah, because fundamentally I just wanted to bring some light upon some of the topics within mental health, eating disorders, and the misconceptions associated to those illnesses that don't get as much acknowledgement. They don't get as much acknowledgement as they generally should. So I've collected a few questions and I'll be going through and hopefully providing a little bit more context and, you know, some answers within using my experience. And just as a preface, I will be using my experience and my knowledge, what I've collected over the past 11 years of suffering disordered eating. So just know that everyone is individual, everyone is unique, everyone has a different experience with disordered eating, mental health. It's so multifaceted. There's no one size fits all, so just please keep that in mind also. And just as a quick little background, my name is Lara. I suffered disordered eating from the age of 11. I'm now 21. I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa when I was 15 years old, and I've had a long and tedious journey with my mental health, with disordered eating, but I'm now on the very productive and positive pathway towards recovery. I still like to discuss my struggles and, you know, the fact that the journey is, you know, ongoing. I have a full video, a full content within my podcast discussing my experience, so I'll link everything below if you want to hear more so about that. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me. I have had nearly a decade of experience. Not something that is necessarily the most positive, but hopefully I can translate into something more positive and uplifting and productive. Now I can transform the experiences that I've had into something useful across social media. At least that is the objective. Do you still have some intrusive thoughts? If not, how long do they take to overcome? I do. This is why I will still say that I do have an eating disorder and I haven't necessarily fully recovered. Previously, my identity was pretty much 95% anorexia and 5% Lara. It is now almost flipped. So the intrusive thoughts are still there, but I have developed and cultivated the knowledge and the experience to know what to implement and what strategies and healthy strategies to implement to be able to control those thoughts and be able to, you know, apply myself in a healthier headspace rather than undergoing or feeling more vulnerable towards those thoughts. That is not necessarily me saying that I have my weak spots and I have my days where I'm not as strong and I'm not as capable to fight those intrusive thoughts and those disordered thoughts. But that's okay. That's just being human, and that's just understanding that the process is long and tedious and ongoing. It is going to be a long and tedious process, but fundamentally that's going to provide you with as much growth and learning opportunities as possible. So they're not all gone, they're still there, but very, very minimal, and I've now developed vast amounts of knowledge and understanding of my mindset to be able to control it in a way that's far healthier and far more constructive. How much were your parents involved in your recovery? How did you gain trust in their help? The topic of parents within a mental health journey is obviously very difficult. When you're discussing the topic of mental health, disordered eating, etc., it is a very isolating and a very individual journey that you're ongoing. You're not necessarily thinking of many external factors because you're so consumed and engulfed by this, you know, intoxicating voice that's just so self-destructive, but you're so fixated. So my parents were involved, and I am fundamentally extremely grateful, and you know, my gratitude towards them is consistently ongoing, because I can confidently say that I am alive and breathing because they were there to support me. Were you scared of weight gain? Absolutely. So a huge part of my eating disorder was contributed by this essential need of control. You know, weight was never my initial focus. It was just because I had some quite severe underlying psychological factors which pushed me towards wanting this sense of control, this coping mechanism. I went down this trajectory that wasn't at all healthy, and although the weight, the numbers, the calories, the scales were never my focus, as soon as they were introduced and as soon as I recognized them and as soon as they became part of my journey, I became immediately fixated. And you've got to consider anorexia, and you've got to consider the eating disorders as a whole as psychological illnesses, as mental illnesses, and as a form of an addiction. So once they became involved, once scales became routine within my daily lifestyle of this deprivation, of this almost self-harm, it became my fixation. So whereas on the flip side, you know, doctors were implemented, healthcare was implemented, and weight gain was inevitable, and it had to be the case for me to just quite frankly live. It was hugely anxiety inducing because I had known my lifestyle doing the total antithesis. You know, my control and my escapism and my comfort was in the numbers going down. And I know from an external perspective now how destructive and how horrible and how, you know, vile that may seem. But that was the only thing that brought me comfort. That was the only thing that brought me this sense of security. So whereas now going to the opposite side of things and having to accept myself gaining weight and, you know, letting go of that control was hugely uncomfortable. And, you know, visually, yes, that was difficult for me to kind of appreciate, but I was struggling so severely with body dysmorphic disorder as well. So I was totally confused by my image consistently. So it wasn't just the vanity, it wasn't just the image, it was more the sense of control and not knowing where to put my anxiety. So that's when, you know, therapy had to get involved, and, you know, a real focus on my depression and anxiety had to get involved, just for me to find coping mechanisms and strategies that weren't necessarily solely focused on my weight. Yeah, it was scary. It was really scary, but that's just a part of the process. And, you know, as time goes on, you become normalized, and as time goes on, you become more aware and more educated and, you know, more accepting, but it is certainly a slow and tedious process. Do you get any heart problems? Yeah. You do get heart problems when you suffer anorexia nervosa to the extreme, because quite frankly, if you're losing weight severely, you're losing muscle mass severely, your heart is a muscle. You know, that's not me trying to put any scare factors to anybody, but that is just the true reality. Again, eating disorders are not just something to be glamorized and something to be stigmatized as a sense of vanity that, you know, young teenage girls get because they want to look like a Victoria's Secret model. As I've said on repeat, it's a psychological illness that has, you know, huge detrimental effects. It's not just weight loss or weight gain or, you know, manipulation of calories. It is, you know, your skin health, your bone health, your heart health, you know, nutrition, your internal health. There are so many components, your psychological health, your nails, your hair. You know, my hair was falling out, hence why 3 years ago I shaved it. So there are so many external components that people don't really appreciate or recognize. It's not just the person gets visibly smaller, their insides get destroyed in the meantime. So it's pretty serious. Did you lose your period? Again, as a continuation from the previous question, yes, I did. Hormonally, totally out of whack. And I lost my period for, I think it was 2 years. That was a big factor. I think initially I took it upon myself to self-diagnose the loss of my period towards stress, which certainly was a component because it was during the exam periods, and I have chronic perfectionism and anxiety towards academia, which I still have. So I just kind of assumed that the loss of my period was as a result of exam time and, you know, stressing over, you know, the dates and the revision and all of that. But quite frankly, it was also because my BMI was dropping, my health was dropping, my internal health wasn't optimal. Thankfully, I did regain my period, and actually I remember the day that I got it back. It was my school Christmas ball in, I think it was December 2016 or 17, and I was so pleased because obviously when you know your period's coming back, it's a clear and evident sign that you're getting healthier again, and your body is almost thanking you for, you know, filling it with nutrition and filling it with care and love, and what you quite frankly haven't been providing it for very many years. So visibly seeing myself have a period was really an amazing thing. But it was also the day of the ball, the one day that in years I've worn a fancy glamorous dress out, I get my period. So there was mixed emotions. It was obviously a lot of elation, a lot of excitedness, a lot of positivity, but also just, really? On the day that I'm supposed to wear like this gown and black tie, it just, yeah, it has its moments. How did you find the treatment of anorexia? Oh, necessary, scary, anxiety inducing, out of my control. I think as I previously mentioned, words. It's not always just the prospect of the treatment program, it's just the knowledge that somebody that you don't know is taking your control and is putting this meal plan in front of you and is putting these scales in front of you and is, you know, taking the eating disorder out of your hands and trying to implement their help and their support. But as an anorexic and as somebody that was still hugely motivated to, you know, undergo this unhealthy trajectory towards the eating disorder and mental health issues, I didn't see or recognize that as support or help. I saw that as something preventative. I saw that as something, you know, those people were trying to take away what I inevitably wanted. And as I say, the control element is so huge when it comes to disordered eating. So having somebody external take that away from you and, you know, put fear foods in front, you know, rewrite your total daily routine, rewrite your whole lifestyle, is very scary. So initially it was, yeah, I did not like it. I don't think many people do, because it is a shock to the system. It's unfamiliar. It's, you know, it's a territory that you don't want to be walking around, because you've sought so much comfort within this lifestyle that you know deep down is not good for you, but you know that it's a release, and you know that it's a coping mechanism, and you know that it's this sense of comfort. So yeah, initially it was extremely terrifying because you don't know what the heck is happening. But as I said, as time goes on and as time progresses, your knowledge develops, your mindset kind of progresses for the better, and you're able to recognize why these people are a part of your life, and it gets better. Eating disorders and sex, how do they relate? I don't know how specifically that connects, but when I was in the depth of my anorexia, I was 15, 16, I wasn't interested in that. As I say, my whole identity was engulfed by an eating disorder. I didn't have a social life. I didn't have any interest in blokes and boys in high school drama, because I totally excluded myself away from that. That's another component of eating disorders. People don't seem to recognize the social kind of anxiety and just the whole like asphyxiating panic you are in. A social dilemma is really difficult to kind of live in, so you almost isolate yourself, and with that comes loss of friends, a loss of boyfriends, a loss of a social life. So I personally never had sex when I was in the worst of my eating disorder, but coming out of my eating disorder now and becoming more sexually confident and becoming more appreciative as myself as a young female woman, 21, but healthier and a lot happier now, I don't think they relate. I think there obviously have been moments where my confidence had to develop a bit, but I think I've been grateful to have good people, and I'm very strict. I'm very strict with the people that I allow to get close to me, because I get why do I get so awkward? Sex is such a normal thing, but I get so awkward to talk about it. Basically what I'm trying to say is that anorexia taught me to keep a very close circle, which I think is good. I think it's a great lesson that I've learned, because ultimately you don't want, you know, toxic relationships, and you don't want people infiltrating negativity upon you. So in terms of nowadays, in terms of my sexuality, in terms of my disordered eating, I don't think they necessarily relate. There have been elements and periods when I'm just like, my body confidence is a bit off and my body dysmorphic is a bit off, but the guys seem to like the way that I look, so it's fine, it's fine. Okay, moving on. How long have you been strength training and how far has it affected your eating disorder? Okay, so there's been a lot of questions in terms of regaining your fitness and sport post disordered eating. Quite frankly, I only got strength training relatively recently in the grand scheme of things. So I was discharged from anorexia. I was discharged from hospital when I was 16, when I was 2017 in January, I think it was. How many months after that? It was quite a few months after that I started running very casually, and then in the October I did a half marathon. So I kind of went relatively quick. But the one thing that I have learned, I have a very addictive personality, and once I have my head set on something, I will be oh so determined to hit that target, whether that was anorexia, whether that was my depression, whether that was a relationship, or whether that's my goals in terms of my fitness and my running and achieving this half marathon, you know, only a few months after I was discharged from hospital. So in a grand scheme of things, I probably should have waited a bit longer because, you know, you think of the conversation of bone density and osteoporosis and running, and so maybe not my best choice, but that's what I did. I ran for a little bit longer, and then due to injury and due to just overwork and bad running form, I mucked up my foot, so I gradually implemented strength training into my routine and visited a gym. Initially, obviously it's hugely anxiety inducing, you're in an unfamiliar environment, gyms can be quite terrifying for somebody that was struggling so severely with social anxiety disorder, but as time went on I got confident and I felt empowered, and I think strength training has really like hit the nail on the head in terms of developing this positive and healthy relationship with myself and my fitness and my body. So in the conversation of disordered eating and strength training, I think it's an incredible thing to be able to undergo once you've reached a healthy mindset, but I don't think collaborating the both, because strength training, it's obviously high volume, high density, high repetition, and quite fatiguing. So if you're in a point of deprivational disordered eating and, you know, you're struggling with fatigue, you're struggling with, you know, I think basically what I'm trying to say is make sure you're totally healthy in a mindset format and psychological format and in a health format and a physical format before you ever consider, you know, dedicating a lifestyle of activity, of, you know, strength training, of whatever. You've got to make sure that you're happy, you're strong, you're healthy before you even comprehend or even kind of suggest activity, because you just want to look after yourself. You've got more than enough time to focus on that right now. You just need to focus on your health, your well-being, and then have that to look forward to. Set that as a goal, you know. I will get healthy enough to be able to go and give that 5k a go with my group of friends. So just set those goals, but just be realistic and set a timeline, and yeah, just look after yourself. So yeah, I hope my little babble has helped. It's been kind of nice having a little YouTube chat, and yeah, I just think maintaining the conversation and communication circulating disordered eating and mental health is something so fundamentally important, because again, with all the stigmas and misconceptions associated, it is important that, you know, we consistently raise awareness, not just for 1 month a year, but on a regular basis, to make sure that anyone struggling doesn't feel totally isolated and doesn't feel totally, you know, insignificant. Support is out there. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to put a question in the comment directions, or email me, or message me directly on Instagram, whatever. I'll try and get back to you as quickly as I can. And yeah, sending all my love, and hopefully I will be continuing to make some YouTube videos, because I know I have been really neglecting this platform. So yeah, sending all my love, believe in your strength, and keep smiling. I'll talk to you in the next video.